Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Nice to see a lot of familiar faces. I'm Peter Butler with the Animas River Stakeholders Group. I've been working with that stakeholders group since 1994, since the inception of the group. I'm one of the co-coordinators. My other co-coordinator is Steve Farron, here in the audience. We've been a watershed group that's been around a lot longer than a lot of other groups, and so we've actually been able to accomplish probably more projects than a lot of other groups. Over the past 2 years, all the discussion in the Animas Basin has revolved around the gold king. Well, there's a lot more going on in the Animas Basin besides the gold king, and that's why I've gotten tired of talking about the gold king. And so today, I want to spend a lot of time talking about Mineral Creek. I noticed that there's another Mineral Creek in the Uncompahgre watershed. This is Mineral Creek in the Animas watershed. So this is the watershed when you go up over Red Mountain Pass, as soon as you drop over the other side, into the Animas side, that's Mineral Creek. And you follow Mineral Creek drainage, all the way down to Silverton. I'll start the first one here. There's been a lot of work done in Mineral Creek. It's starting back in 1995. I've got 12 mine remediation projects there. I actually thought of another one yesterday, so it was actually 13. And most of those projects have been done very close to the top of Red Mountain Pass. 3 of those projects involved draining adits. One involved a trans-basin diversion removal, which I'll get to in a moment. 9 of the projects involved mine waste remediation. In some cases, the mine waste was remediated on site, and at least 3 of those mine waste piles were actually removed and carted off to other sites. 2 were actually taken to the Howardsville mill to be reprocessed, and another one was taken to a repository in the Mayflower tailings. So the next slide. So I'm going to run through just a few examples of these projects very quickly, and then kind of talk about the overall impacts of what we've seen with kind of the culmination of all these projects. This one was done in 1995. This is a project done by Sunnyside Gold. That was the Kohler dump, mine waste dump. It was probably the worst mine waste dump in the basin. And they picked it up and took it all off to Mayflower tailings pond number 4. They also mucked out that pond. This is right up almost at the top of Red Mountain Pass. Next slide. This is looking across. This is the same area. You're kind of standing on that dump you just saw the picture of, and you see the Longfellow dump across the way there. In this case, it had historical structures on it, so they didn't want to remove the dump, so they actually remediated it in place with fly ash and put some topsoil and vegetation and rerouted the drainage around it. And so it looks much better, and it's much what it looks like today. Next one. This is just going down the highway a little bit. This is the Silver Ledge. This is a structure as you're going down Red Mountain Pass. You see this head frame kind of sticking up, and you can see it pretty clearly. The mine waste there was actually in the creek, and the creek was eroding into it, and we came in and removed the mine waste, and we put it in this cut that was right next to the head frame. And it was mixed with fly ash and kiln dust, and then later topped off with some rocks to keep it from eroding as well. This was a 319 project. Kirsten Brown, who's here in the audience, was the supervisor on this project. We also stabilized the foundation for the head frame. One corner of the head frame was starting to collapse, and the whole head frame was at risk of actually falling over, and we stabilized that foundation as well as part of the project. Next. This was one we just completed this past year, the Bullion King project. It was a very large dump. In this case, a geotech liner was put over the dump. It was actually spread out and kind of graded so that there wouldn't be so much erosion. This is a very tough location. It's about 12,500 feet up above or near Red Mountain Pass. It took quite a bit of effort to get to and to do this particular project. Next. Oh, one other thing I'm going to point out with that project. We were very fortunate. You see all the rock there. We actually found a huge supply of topsoil there. Really nice, clean topsoil, which was a big surprise and really helped us out a lot with this project. Next one. This is an older project. This is a trans-basin diversion. There was a diversion that took water out of Bighorn Gulch and took it over across from the Animas side over into the Uray side. And this trans-basin diversion, the water went right over the mine workings, and we felt like there was a lot of seepage going into the mine workings. We got a grant, a 319 grant, and purchased the water rights, and then got those, and then the Southwest Water Conservation District paid the legal effort to get those water rights dedicated to in-stream flow in Bighorn Gulch. So we got the water rights and put them in stream so that we wouldn't have someone else come along and make a claim later after we purchased those water rights. So that was a very innovative project. I'm sorry, folks, you and Ray, we took our water back. And this also adds to the dilution, of course, on the Animas side as well. And that dump has been remediated as well. That's one of the projects I was talking about. Next one, please. That again, that's the ditch being removed up in a high alpine environment, and it looks a lot better today. Next one. This is probably the most important project. This is a bulkhead put in the Kohler Tunnel. Kohler Tunnel is almost to the top of Red Mountain Pass. The Kohler Tunnel, when we first started evaluating all the sites in the Animas Basin, was by far the largest mining-related source of metal loading. This is a bigger metal loader than the Gold King or the Red and Bonita. At that time, we evaluated about 160 draining mines throughout the basin. This one mine contributed 50% of all the zinc of that 160 sites. So that's a huge site. This was put in actually by the Gold King Mining Corporation. Actually put this bulkhead in 2002. Let's go to the next picture. There was some leakage of around the fracture zone in that bulkhead, and so we came back in about 5 or 6 years later with a 319 grant and pressure grouted all the way around it. We now feel like it's sealed pretty well. This particular bulkhead, as far as we can tell, has been quite successful. We haven't seen a lot of leakage or water coming out in other locations. It's pretty high in the basin. There's not a huge amount of head on it. But this is probably the project that made the biggest difference in Mineral Creek. Next one. So what are the results of all these different projects? Well, fortunately, we have a record going back almost 25 years of monthly data down at the gauging station at Mineral Creek. That's down where the highway crosses it, right down by Silverton. So we have a very long record of what's going on. And what we've seen is that copper and zinc concentrations have dropped by about 70%. And that's from projects at the top of the watershed, and we're looking down at the bottom of the watershed. Cadmium concentrations have dropped about 50%. Iron, aluminum, and pH haven't changed at all. These mine sites had a lot of iron and aluminum in them, but because there's so much other natural sources, groundwater sources of iron and aluminum in the basin, that what we got out of those mining sites was a very, very small percentage compared to the metals that we were able to get out of those mine remediation projects. Somebody asked a question earlier about natural versus mining-related metals. It depends a lot on the metal, and it depends a lot on the location. Next one, please. So here's a map. This is from Mountain Studies Institute. This is where they took. Go back. I think I did that. There, thank you. This is the. Here's Mineral Creek, Silverton down here, Red Mountain Pass at the top. This section from the top of Red Mountain Pass, going all the way down to what's called Burrow Bridge. That's the bridge that goes over the creek and goes up Ophir Pass. This section of stream used to have no aquatic life and was very heavily impacted. We did most of the projects up here at the top, and water quality is greatly improved in this section. By the way, these little red triangles on here, these are sites where MSI took macroinvertebrate samples for EPA this past year, and so there's a lot of good macroinvertebrate data. Recent data. We also had some old historic data as well. Unfortunately, the middle fork of Mineral Creek, which is again the drainage that goes up to Ophir Pass, has a tremendous amount of iron and aluminum in it, and it comes in and pretty much wipes out the water quality in Mineral Creek. And water quality is very poor between the middle fork and down to the south fork. The south fork then has pretty good water quality and has a good brook trout fishery. And that comes in, dilutes it, and water quality from the South Fork down to Silverton is better, but it really doesn't support aquatic life very well. And that's because of the iron and aluminum. The zinc, copper, and cadmium all just about meet table value standards in that section of the river. If you got rid of the iron and aluminum, it actually would have really good water quality. You probably would have a fishery in there. Next slide. So the upper portion of Mineral Creek is where we've had some surprises. We knew water quality improved. Because of those studies that have been done by MSI, we have some good data that show that the Ackland vertebrate populations actually are quite good. They have good diversity in the high numbers. And then much to our surprise, USGS was out there this past fall on the behest of EPA, and they found brook trout in this section. And we really never expected to see brook trout. So we think it came in probably from Mill Creek. They showed a number of different gauge classes of brook trout, and that was a huge surprise. So the next section, please. So currently, Upper Mineral Creek has no aquatic life classification, and yet we found brook trout there. So our next step is, well, we'd like to protect what we've done. Over the past 20 years, there's been a lot of improvements in this Upper Mineral Creek, and we want to improve it. Oh, I'm sorry, we want to protect it. And I think most people in this room, if you do remediation and you do see substantial improvements in water quality, you want to protect those improvements. You want to protect your investment. So our next step is to see if we can get standards changed to put an aquatic life classification on this upper part of Mineral Creek and get the standards changed. That's also an obligation under the Clean Water Act. Legally under the Clean Water Act, if there's a use there, you're obligated to protect it. And we now have a use there. We have an aquatic life use. And so we're obligated to protect that use. The way you go about that is you have to go through the Colorado Water Quality Control Commission, which sets use classifications and standards for all the streams in the state. Next slide. The standard setting process is fairly formal, and if you're not familiar with it at all, it seems a little daunting. But it does take a fair amount of involvement if you're really interested in it. It takes at least a year's time, and you have to have that data before you start that process a year in advance. You should work closely with the commission staff, which is the Water Quality Control Division, and we have several people from the division here today. And they might carry the ball for you. If you provide the information and they say, hey, this looks like good information, we'll put it as part of our proposal, then that kind of makes your job fairly easy. Or you can take the route of actually making the proposal yourself. One of the things that we have is I think we have easily enough information to designate this as an aquatic life system because of the bug and fish data. We don't have that much water quality data. We have some. And when you set if we put an aquatic life use on a segment, you need to have need to characterize what the water quality is, because the commission will say, well, we'll put that aquatic life use on there, but what are the standards going to be? So that's the one kind of part that we're kind of missing at this point. We're collecting more water quality data to better characterize it kind of throughout the year. The commission only addresses the San Juan and Gunnison Basin every 5 years. It's going to happen this year. There's going to be a commission hearing in Durango on June 12th. You might want to come down and kind of get a little feel for what goes on at those commission meetings and meet some of the people who are involved in the process. This year, we're not going to propose changing the standards because we need that extra water quality data. But I just kind of want to highlight that there's another step after you've done all this remediation. And that, well, once you've done it, how do you protect it and preserve the actions that you've taken? So that I'll finish and take any questions. Yeah.
Generally speaking, could you touch on a couple of the non-fishery related benefits of the remedial work? I'm thinking, for example, municipal water supply, filtration needs, broader wildlife issues from the food chain. To help us understand what the bigger benefits are, not just in terms of the fishery itself, in a localized sense.
The question had to do with what are some of the other benefits of improving water quality, not just for the fisheries and the aquatic life, but what other impacts are there that you would improve. Some of it is water supply, although generally water quality standards to protect aquatic life are actually more stringent than most water supply standards. So if you're meeting aquatic life standards, you're going to generally protect water supply as well. Some of the advantages, the reasons why we were doing some of this remediation was we didn't expect to see a lot of aquatic life and see big improvements in Mineral Creek. What we were really after was how do we improve the Animas basin down below Silverton. And you always have a continuum of water quality in most of these mountain regions, where the water quality is really poor at the top, and it gets better as you go downstream, at least in terms of metals. So basically what you're doing is you've got some zone there where you have really good water quality and aquatic life, and generally when you're doing this remediation project, you're just moving that zone upstream. And that's kind of been the target in the Animas Basin. Part of the driver for the Animas River Stakeholders Group was the potential for strict water quality standards. The state had proposed some very strict standards back in 1994. It was unclear whether those standards were attainable. There was also a very strong interest in mining at that still in Silverton. The last mine had just shut down 3 years earlier, and people were concerned that you have this regulatory regime, and if they set standards that are totally unattainable, you're never going to have mining come back again in this area. And that was a big impetus for pushing the Animas River Stakeholders Group. And the other impetus for the stakeholders group was there was talk of a Superfund site designating all the upper basin. And a lot of people felt that they would lose a lot of local control. And so they wanted to see what could be done locally with a cooperative group to kind of stave off potential Superfund designation. So the Animas River Stakeholders Group was very much driven by regulatory policy and regulatory schemes that might come after it. And that was a driver, and that's a little different than some other watershed groups. Yeah, Corey.
Peter, how far up the Animas below Silverton is the water quality good?
Water quality standards are not met at Baker's Bridge. They are met at Trimble Lane. All what's called known as table value standards, which are standards designed to protect 95% of all aquatic life. So, and the main reason that water quality standards aren't met at Baker's Bridge is that the hardness is really low at Baker's Bridge, which drives the metal standards very low. Metal standards tend not to be numeric values. They are often hardness-based equations. The lower the hardness, the more toxic metals are. And so there's very low hardness at Baker's Bridge. So that's where it starts.
One last question.
One more.
And he'll be available during the break too. So.
Could you tell us what's going on behind the bulkhead in Kohler Tunnel? To me, that seems like a Band-Aid, and that bulkhead will fail at some point unless it's not regularly maintained. Is the water building up? Is there pressure on that bulkhead? Where's the water going?
There is pressure. The question had to do with what's going on behind the bulkhead of the Kohler Tunnel, and that maybe just be a Band-Aid. We have actually taken some samples. There is a valve that you can open shut, and there is a pressure gauge. There's actually a lot of bulkheads that don't have that. This one does. So we have taken pressure readings. The water level has pretty stabilized. I think it's around the air order of 120, 130 feet ahead behind it. We did take some water quality samples from it because we also took some samples downstream, basically in the tunnel where there was some seepage, and we wanted to compare the two to say, hey, is this seepage, do we think it's coming from behind that bulkhead? And the answer was yes. And that's why we did the grouting project, and that sealed off those seepages coming around the outside. So actually the Kohler Tunnel would be a very good place to do some in situ treatment. There is some access, you could access it potentially from up above and actually change the water quality in it. And that area about the Kohler Tunnel and the Longfellow, that is actually one of the Superfund sites that was designated by EPA. And I think one of the main reasons was it's not doing much damage, but having a Superfund program there might provide more maintenance.